Hi moms. Today we're talking about being your child's friend versus being your child's parent. Being your child's parent always has to come before being their friend. That can come along later, and I'm sure it will. Being your child's friend really protects their feelings in the moment. But the more important thing is being a parent in every moment, because that is what's going to protect their future. Welcome to Moms on the Runway, where we help you navigate the beautiful chaos of all things mom. We're going to start by talking about our weekly wins, and I'll kick it over to you for your weekly win.
Yeah, so mine was, one of our very first episodes, we talked about friendship and community, and my challenge to everyone was go invite somebody to coffee. And I have a cousin. I have not talked to her in about a year, but we see each other on social media, and she just reached out to encourage me about the podcast and was really excited about it. And she's like, we really need to get together sometime. And I'm like, if I don't do it now, then I'm not going to do it. So I was like, let's get it on the calendar. So this week I spent an hour with her. She and I are very similar. She's a little bit younger than I am, but we've gone through similar things. But both of our dads passed away from the same disease. So we have a lot of things that were just very similar. Mm-hmm. And we were able to connect and encourage each other. So that was very fun. We had a good time together. So I did coffee with a friend.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. How about you?
I, just had a week of just really good, productive week. I feel like overall catching up on, everything I needed to catch up on the professional side. Just kind of aligning my, trip schedule, all my travel and things like that. So it just felt really productive. It's
a huge win. Yeah, that's a huge win. So, well, great. So let me ask you a question, and to everyone watching, a very important question, right? So when we're talking about parenting and friends, what type of parent do you want to be? Do you want to be a parent, or do you want to be a friend? And then ask yourself, what type of parent are you? Realistically, what type of parent are you? Are you one that truly parents them, or do you really just want your kid to like you? Because let's be honest, this is a really tough question to ask ourselves, because who doesn't want to be liked by their kids? And so there is this boundary of, being the parent versus being the friend. And I feel like when there is discipline, when there are boundaries, when there is guidance, that's when your kids really respect you. And that's when I feel like they look up to you.
Right.
And I think it's just very helpful to separate the two. So we want them to like us, but I think that if you want peace in the home and you want them to thrive outside of the home, I think parenting has to come first, like you mentioned in the opening. And then the friendship comes next. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about boundaries and the importance of them and why kids should have them versus why they shouldn't have them. I think a lot of people think that boundaries mean we have to be harsh or we have to be strict,
right,
or it's cold. And it doesn't. You want to have boundaries, but you want it to come from a place of love and consistency. And just overall, making sure that they understand, hey, these are the rules. We have to stick by them, but it's done in a connecting way with your kid. So let's start with talking about boundaries and, what they do for kids. So the first thing, let's talk about safety, because I think that that's one of the most important things of why there should be boundaries is for safety reasons. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I couldn't agree more, and it starts at the very start. I mean, you just think about your little baby and the physical boundaries you're creating for them, because their body doesn't know, doesn't have the control to know where to go and what's dangerous, and they're just here in this world for the very first time. So it starts with physical boundaries and, gates, different things that block the stairs. I mean, you're not gonna, once your toddler starts toddling around, you know that you've got to just watch them so they're not running out in the road and different things like that. So you do have hard boundaries, but then you start kind of showing them what's safe and why. And that slowly evolves as their little brains grow and they start understanding. And you can't really underestimate a child's understanding. I think that just for me, I always kind of think, oh, they don't get it. Or, I used to think that maybe they don't understand, and then they just surprise you with something and you just understand that there's a whole little person in there and they understand so much more. They're just restricted by their lack of speech. I mean, they just can't put it together in a sentence to tell you that they understand it. But so don't discount your child's intelligence and what they do understand, and you can demonstrate things that, this is how, don't want to do this, don't want to, stick your fingers into the outlets and different things like that. So I think, there has to be an action and reaction for certain things. So when things have to do with your safety, it's okay to be a little bit more harsh and a little bit more high-strung. I'm not saying that you need to scream at your children or anything like that, but physical redirection would be an appropriate thing in that case. So
yeah, I think the point is, and that's a really good point, because it doesn't just start with correcting your kids, but like you said, the safety of the physical things that you're putting in place when they're very little and they're not that mobile at that point. But it's a point that you can make that says they don't understand the world. They don't understand how it works, and that's where parents come in.
Right.
And they start from a very early age protecting those kids. And I think if we think of it that way, that we are their protectors, and that is the point of those safety things that you put around their house. But then even as they get older and you start disciplining them, whatever that looks like, we'll talk about that a little bit. But I think that with that discipline is you protecting them and keeping them safe. I know for me, when my kids were little, I like to observe people, and I like to see what other people are doing. And I try to pull from what other people are doing that works and what I don't think works. And I remember watching parents, and they would count to 3, and I would watch their kids really be in control at that point. And I don't want to put anyone down that may do this, but for me, I was like, no, I'm going to train my kids when I say something that they're going to listen. There is no...
The first time.
Yeah. There is no, you get X amount of tries to get there. Because for me, the logical part was, if my kids, they're not listening to me the first time that I'm telling them to do something, one, they learn that they can push and push and push. And I didn't want them to think that they were going to control what I thought was best for them. And then I thought, if my kid is running out to the street and I'm counting to 1, 2, and then they're in the middle of the road,
right?
I did not want to take those chances with my kids. So for me, the very early on, I was, nope, when I say something, you're going to listen. And I this might be a little bit controversial, but I didn't let them question it. It was because in the moment when I say it, I want you to know that you need to do that.
Right.
And there's times as they got older that I will maybe go back and explain something to them, but I didn't want them to question. I didn't want a back and forth. For me, it was like, this is what I feel is safe for you. This is the boundary you're going to have, and you're going to do it. And so and I think that the earlier on you do that, the less throughout life you're going to have to deal with them, because they're going to understand.
And they're just going to get more and more difficult. I mean, as they grow, they just become a little bit more resourceful, and they just know the buttons that they can push, and they learn about you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're just so highly intelligent, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Is there anything else safety-wise, that you can think of?
Obviously, you shouldn't just always be saying no either. Yes, you want to create boundaries, but you don't want to be the one who's just constantly saying no. And so I think we just get to this primal basic level where we forget that we're adults and we have the intelligence to navigate the world of boundaries and discipline with a child. I mean, you can redirect them. It doesn't always have to be, I mean, it just depends. If certain things, like I said, safety, like you said, safety concern, it has to be a hard no. And you know what, cry or don't cry, it doesn't matter because it's a no. But, you know, you have to just also pick your battles, I feel like, and you have to just say, okay, in this case, I can just show them something different. Or, you know, hey, do you want to play with this toy instead of, you know, that toy? And just put it out of their reach so it's not constantly in front of them. And again, talking about different ages, I think that's going to make, you know, how you approach it has largely to do everything with their age. But, you know, you can explain the action and consequence once it's age appropriate, and different, you know, things will be as you navigate that. You'll know what they understand. But, you know, even somebody like a little child, you could tell them, hey, if you do this, then, you know, you can't play with your toys. So, I mean, they can understand that, but then follow through. If they end up doing it, you do have to remove the toys or remove the child out of that environment. And you don't have to be angry. You don't have to, you know, be kind of emotional about it.
I think that's so key in parenting is don't do anything out of anger or any type of emotion, because I think when we don't separate that emotion, that's when they feed back. So if you're angry, they're going to throw back anger at you. Or if, you know, it's the power of the wills, then your kid is going to test you on that. And you don't. Like you said, you just kind of want to be where you're monotone, for lack of the right word, but just kind of consistent and like, hey, this is factual. I guess factual is more of what you're doing when you're putting in those safety boundaries.
And you may be angry in the moment because you're like, okay, I told them and they don't listen, but, you know, patience. And just, yes, even if you're angry, take a big breath, let it go, and then just approach it in a calm manner where you just follow through on that consequence, and then you reinforce it in that moment. You say, I told you not to do that. I told you if you do that, the toys will be taken away. Now you've done that, and I'm taking the toys away. We can try later.
Yeah, and follow through.
And follow through. So, you know, and you can, as they get older, you can explain in more detail undesired results of their action. If they do that, what that could mean. Because for a child, also, they don't have the same action to consequence connection. And so it's our job to really show them that connection and show them that this is the result because we've lived it. We've already seen it. They don't know that. And
it's so much easier to do that with teenagers too, because I feel like with my kids, I can help them understand, like, this is why you don't want to do this. Very different from a child. Like you said, they're not going to understand it as much at that age, but as age appropriate comes about and you can speak to them about it, it is important to do it. Not to explain yourself, but just
explain the consequence in the world that's beyond your control. Right. You're not the one causing it. That is just the action and reaction. That's how the world works.
And not in the moment of them doing it.
Totally.
Outside of that moment, before that moment happens, and you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, and in the heat of the moment, you really have to, you know, really step back and just, I feel like in many cases, I'm just like, ask God for wisdom. Like, how do I approach this? Because you're not always going to have all the answers, you know. Little things that you could do and kind of the plan for how to approach different situations, but in the heat of the moment, sometimes you just have to take a step back and just reflect, you know, and how can I show them a better way? How can I be wise when I speak to them about it that will resonate with them, especially as they get older? And, you know, you think about adults who know an action and reaction and then they still do it. You know, I mean, you think about a number of destructive behaviors, you know, just starting from, I don't know, smoking cigarettes. And it's just like, you know, it's going to cause cancer, lung cancer, heart disease. I mean, you name it. And it's just like people still do it. And there are certain things that make them do it. So there are just so many pressures. And I mean, nowadays, it's no longer a societal pressure. Like, imagine living back in the 80s. You walk into anywhere and people are smoking on the airplane. I mean, I would be livid, I feel like, if that was happening today. But that's just with anything, you just have to realize the types of pressures that they're going to be dealing with as a teenager, and obviously having to navigate a lot more complexity when it comes to making certain decisions.
Yeah, they've advanced. The teens have advanced very quickly in what they know and what they do, and it's really important to be able to sit down and have real conversations with your kids as they get older. So let's talk a little bit more about other boundaries, and what's going to help them. Maybe building discipline, self-discipline. I think we talk about delayed gratification, right? I mean, we've talked about this even kind of when you talk about, we're so used to the Amazon delivery truck, right? And so our kids have gotten used to getting everything immediately.
Right.
And I think us as parents, we have to put in those boundaries so that they don't grow up thinking that that's normal. Because it is a little bit. Everything is so accessible today with our phones, and everything is getting faster and faster when we want something. And as convenient as that is, the mindset that it puts your child in to think that they can just snap their fingers and get whatever they want. And when they don't, they want to throw a fit, or they, just get upset about it. I think that having boundaries helps the self-discipline, because later on in life, your boss isn't going to hand you whatever you want. Your professor isn't going to allow you to push the boundaries and get away with not having your homework done, or whatever that looks like in college. So I think that having boundaries helps with self-discipline.
Yeah, and it's funny that you would say that. I was in my hometown, Odessa, several years ago. I think it was pre-COVID. And it was the second time I was there since '96 when we moved here. And we went to visit the school that I went to the school till I was 13. And so just, now I know some of my friends who I went to school there with, now their children are going to school there. And so we're just talking about what's school
so
like,
cool.
Things like that. And it's crazy to hear just, kids and, the competition between the kids and how it has changed, that everybody has to have the brand new iPhone. I mean, if you don't have a brand new iPhone, you're such a loser. Like the rest of the kids are like, ew, why don't you have a, and then it goes further into, like, if a child gets a bad grade, parents come in and they have a heart-to-heart, and sometimes it involves cash. I mean, it's the craziest thing where I'm like, why would somebody do that? I mean, do you want your child to you want to pay somebody off? I mean, this doesn't go on here, but I mean, in some ways, I feel like you can pay for certain things to the school for your kid to get where, they may not necessarily belong.
Right. I'm pretty sure that's happening. But
but it's just a little bit more blatant, and it blows my mind, because it's like, hey, one day your kid may be the doctor that is treating somebody for like a life-threatening thing. And that's what they've gotten used to, is their child just cushioning them from the reality of disappointment, from the reality of the world. I mean, really, it's like you are destroying the society. Your own child, you're putting your child forward in that effort. I mean,
that's crazy that happens. I mean, it happens, but I mean, you just saw it right in front of your eyes.
Just really wild. Yeah. So, I think that delaying gratification for our children and really just being realistic about the world, I mean, and what you want of this world, and the world you want your children to live in, it starts with you. I mean, reform starts at home. I mean, that's it.
For me, I want my kids to be respectful. Like, that is super important for me, that my kids, whoever they're under, whether it's a boss, whether, it's a parent, I want them to, one, be kind, and two, be respectful.
That's something that's non-existent nowadays in so many, public schools. I have some of my clients and their spouses are in the public school system. I mean, I hear the stories time and time again. They're like, my spouse can't wait to get out of this system. They're just waiting the next, couple years so they can retire and they could just be done with it. Not for the, obviously they love being an educator and they love what they bring to the table, but they just can't deal with the discipline, lack of discipline, and just children there are no ramifications. And then oftentimes, if there are ramifications in the school, then the teachers get the brunt of it from the parents who, Will would tell me he was in a Catholic school, and so he had a bunch of nuns, and he just still has trauma from that, I feel like, because he's like, they were brutal. They would like throw chalk. They would be physically abusive and wow. Not physical, not, spanking and don't spare the rod type of thing, but like straight abuse, like child abuse. Wow. Those people were just twisted. So that's the other side of the spectrum, because he's still, as an adult, I feel like, angry about it, on some level. And so, but now it's gone the other way, the complete other way, where your child could do no wrong. People don't believe it if somebody's like, your child did A, B, and C, and that's not okay. And you're like, well, you guys are liars. I don't think so. What do you mean? My child's perfect. My child's good. Mm-hmm. What is the message you're sending? And it's crazy because my husband would come back home, he would tell me, and he'd go to, my mother-in-law, Nana, and she's the nicest person there ever was, but I guess when she was younger, things were a little different. She's like, you come back and you tell on the nuns that they were mean, and you'd get a beating at home too.
Really? So, yeah. It is so different today. Yeah. It is so very different. And, there is obviously an in-between. Right. But I think that it's really tough because parents now are taught to do this gentle parenting, like have a discussion. And that's why boundaries are so important, because their minds don't see the whole world yet. They don't understand it to be able to make rational decisions for themselves. Right. Which is why, they say that. And I sat down with my girls. They were asking me about relationships and stuff. And one of my daughter's really good friends was over the other day. And she's like, what's the best advice you can give me for like dating somebody? And you know what I told her? I said, listen to your mom. Because I remember my mom had so much wisdom. And it's true, as you get older, you just know more. So you do have more wisdom. And of course, nobody's going to listen to that. I'm like, well, she's not going to listen to me, but she wants my advice, so I'm going to tell her. Because there is something that we do as parents see. But if we're not the parent and we are the friend, then we are giving them an out to act however they want to act. And for me, I don't want my kids to be disrespectful to their teachers or to their friends, to anyone. But if we do this gentle parenting, that's the outcome that we're getting today. So I think boundaries are super important for us to give to our kids.
And right or wrong, like the teacher could be wrong, your boss could be wrong, your government could be wrong.
Right. Right.
And they will be many times because they are people, imperfect people, just like the rest of us. But you have to teach your children how to approach that and how to navigate that with a sense of dignity. Because when your child is disrespectful, it is a reflection on you, and it's a reflection on them more so than the figure of authority. It's how you react, and it's big.
Yeah, I think another thing for me, one of the most important reasons to put boundaries on my kids, I really believe that kids respect you more.
Yeah.
I watch the kids that either throw temper tantrums or they just push their parents. Really, they control their parents. I watch this happen all the time. And I think to myself, why do you want to, as a parent, put yourself in this situation? Now, there's always outliers. There's always moments that you're tired and you give in. But as a whole, I think it's really important to, again, when you say something, you mean it. Because you see kids that are like, hey, I want that candy bar. And the mom's like, no, I don't want you to have it. And they're like, no, I want it. And then it just escalates. Yeah. And they keep pushing and they keep pushing. And they learn that the more persistent they become, the more exhausted you become. And there are a lot of people that will back down to their kids. And you're taking the power that you can just be like, I said no, end of story, walk away. Like, remove yourself from the situation. But they will sit there and they will go back and forth with their kids. If you think those kids have any respect for you, they don't. They are saying, no, I'm going to beat mom at this game. I'm going to be stronger willed than she is. And she's going to ultimately do what I want her to do. But if you think that kid respects you by you allowing them to ultimately get their way, they don't. And so it's very important for me that I have trained my kids. This is it. When I say it, this is what's going to happen. And I think that obviously exhaustion plays a part in it, but you're making that worse.
Because you're just creating more issues for yourself in the future. So if you're exhausted now, it's just going to get worse. Because they just know that they can always push you around. I mean, now, if your child is just really smart and they just wait a minute, and then they just, have good negotiation skills, they can come back and they could just be like, listen, if I do this, would you allow me to do this?
I think I have one or two like that, and they're pretty masterful at it, so that might work a little bit better for sure.
But whining never does. And I hate the whiny, the screaming, the clear, just... Defiance.
Yeah.
That's not... Okay.
So, Pate lives in the dance world.
Yeah.
And I remember so she started very later on in life than most of the competitive dancers do, but she started very later in life. And I remember later, so much so that she knows what she's doing, right? This is not 2 and 3. She's 11 or 12 at this point.
Yeah.
In the very first competition, she was full out diva, like demanding, throwing fits. And I looked at her and I said, let me set these boundaries very quickly. You
once and for all
will not ever treat me like this. You will not ever speak to me like this. She goes, but this is what everyone does. I lost my mind. I said, when have I ever cared what other people are doing? This is about me and this is about you. And I will walk out that door and you will steam your own costumes. You will change them. You will do your own makeup and your hair if you treat me like this. But I watch the amount of girls so disrespectful.
And their mothers let them.
And I have seen girls kick their moms out of the dressing room. And I'm like, what is going on here? But it is something, and let me tell you, this last competition, she was tired. She was exhausted. And I said, I get it. I understand that, but you have no right to treat me like that. But I'm also saying you don't have a right to treat your boss like that. You don't have a right to treat your spouse. You don't have that right. Because you're tired, you figure out how to deal with that at 16.
Yeah.
I'm not dealing with that, nor should anyone around you have to deal with it. And so these kids go off and these parents think, well, let me just talk to them and rationalize with them. You can't. And at 16, I'm still redirecting. And here's the good part, is redirecting is seconds now. It is not this 30-minute journey that we're going to go on. No, this is going to happen now. And I'm going to redirect you. And listen, she has every right to be exhausted and to be frustrated and to be upset. And I absolutely try to take that into consideration. But the moment that it becomes disrespectful, that's where we're going to recorrect this.
And moms, I don't know if they forget that they're in control. You're financing it. So,
yes.
I mean, that's you have all the power. You just say, listen. But I feel like you are so invested that it's hard for you to really say that I can pull the plug on this, and the child knows that they can call you bluff.
Well, that's where follow through is so key. Because I've had to think, and I've thought this in my mind, I'm going to say this, and I'm like, wait, will I actually follow through?
Will I be able to do the follow through?
Yeah, because if I threaten that, listen, I know I'll walk out the door, but I know I won't take away dance from her. So if I said, listen, you're not coming back, you're never doing this again, listen, there are many times I have said things and I'm like, crap. I'm not really going to follow through with this. But you do have to think about that before it comes out. Again, like what you said, you have to calmly think before you
can't blurt it out. And then you're like, oops, never mind.
Just kidding.
Not going to do that.
Let's watch you test me on that and I fail. And now you're going to take advantage next time. So
Totally.
That is really important that you do. If you're going to do something, you really, truly mean it and you can follow through on it. Really important to do that too. So
yeah.
Another thing, kind of what we've been talking about, is preparing them for the real world, right? So we've talked about, it's not just about us, it's about everyone around them. But what are some ideas about preparing them through boundaries? We're preparing them for the real world.
We definitely prepare our children for the real world with our everyday and how we interact with them. And really it just makes me think to the way we went through the last 10 years with Josephine. And I feel like having our second really changed a lot of things for me and just created a mental shift for, getting things for them. I feel like you're just training your kids. So the way we kind of approached it is my husband and I were like, okay, we didn't have certain things growing up. Like maybe we didn't have all the newest of the newest or, this and that. And I grew up very poor in a different country and just thinking that, well, with my child, I can get her all those things. But then you tend to just go overboard. And so you're getting them everything all the time. So it's not even like for her birthday or it's just for like, here you go, every day, something new, exciting things going on. If I'm home, we're doing this, we're doing that, where there's not a single moment that's not filled with some type of excitement, going all the places. And I feel like just really going overboard for, and that prepares them for the real world of the current society. I mean, really, I think about the micro spending trends, like people go on and just constantly, they're just buying something and you get these little dopamine hits, even if it's like just a $3 item. It's just like this constant world of consumerism that I kind of really hate almost, because it's just like this accumulation of stuff.
Right.
And all it takes is just like, you selling your house or you like, moving, and then you realize you have all this junk. And I'm like, I just spent a lifetime working, buying stuff that now I don't even know if half of it I even used, and I'm just getting rid of it. And so I just go up in my daughter's room and it's all these toys, and it's like we haven't had to buy a whole lot for Theo because we've just repurposed it through her kicking and screaming. I mean, she could just not even know what's in her toy chests, and we pull it out and suddenly it's like the most magical thing because she has to share it with her brother. She's like, no, that's mine. And I'm like, well, it was yours, but now it's not. So I have no problem with just making her share anyway. And but also it just makes me think, like, did that really make her happy? I mean, yes, in her defense, I feel like a lot of the stuffed animals we got her, she played with the vast majority of them, and she has a very lively and vivid imagination. I feel like she creates entire, like, movie scenes in her mind with her stuffed animals, and it's really just sweet because I feel like at 10 years old, she's not really into like the girly things like that much. I mean, she's not into makeup or, skincare or all these other things. Not to, judge anybody out there.
Be super happy about that.
I'm so happy about that.
Enjoy those moments, yes.
Yeah, so I feel like she's still a kid and I don't want to steal that from her or rob her of it. But I just feel like, this was a great thing somebody brought up at our church last 2 weeks ago. Actually, our pastor was talking about more is never enough. Is more ever enough? Like, just think about anything. You're on vacation. You're like, I don't want to leave. Just 2 more days. Is that going to really be enough when those 2 days are over? Or your child watching TV and they're like, just 10 more minutes or 2 more minutes. And it's like you think, are they going to be satisfied when that time is up? No, they're looking around their shoulder to see if, you're watching or if they maybe can start the next episode of whatever it is. And so across the board, more is never enough.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. That's where I struggle the most with my kids, because the same thing, I didn't have a lot. growing up, and we make a lot of sacrifices because we travel so much. So it would be like, well, now I can give you this and we can do this. And I never had a hard time with the discipline part with my kids. I was the disciplinarian in the family, but I also would give them a lot, and you're still like the spoiler. But you're right. It's very hard because you have to be intentional. Like for her, you knew that those stuffed animals were actually a positive in her life because it gave her an outlet to be creative and to, connect to something different and what she's good at.
And no tech. I mean, that's taken place of tech for her. We've not done.
Which you're so good. You're so good about that. But yeah, you're right. I think we just give our kids whatever they want, and it is never enough. And I think about one of the things I did when I was in high school, and in between, I ended up graduating a year early. So I graduated my 11th and 12th year.
I'm just not surprised.
Not because I was intelligent, because I moved from New York to a different state. I don't want to say what state because I don't want them to feel bad.
They had lower standards?
Yeah, but they didn't have enough classes for me to take. They legit did not have enough classes. I had taken everything that they had offered at that school in New York.
Kudos, New York. We're still doing something right.
So I combined my last 2 years, and I really, at that point, didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went to a Bible college and it specialized in missions. Mm-hmm. And I did a ton of missions trips when I was 17 years old and went all over the place. And I just remember thinking, and I don't know why this didn't carry through as much as I wish it had, but I just remember watching these kids that we would play with that lived on dirt floors that had nothing but maybe a single ball.
Were they not the happiest though?
And they were the happiest kids I have ever met in my entire life. And I always thought, if there's one thing I'm going to do in this life, it's going to be to take my kids on a missions trip and just show them how great simplicity can be without the pressures of the phone, without the pressures of, like you said, they have this and they have that, and your kids are made fun of because they don't have the best and the greatest new phone. And it is really hard to teach that, but I feel like the parents that are good at it, their kids are the most content, they're the most confident, they're the most like, hey, we're okay with what we have. And it's the simplicity of it that I think takes away that pressure. Because I know even with my kids, when I would tell them no in a situation where maybe their friends wanted them to go out to a party, now sometimes they would get mad at me, but sometimes they were relieved because I put that boundary on them to say, no, you can't do this. And it was like a sense of relief because they didn't want to go and have that pressure on them. And so it's a really good point that you make in that we just throw things. One, it's convenient. It's easy. They're throwing a temper tantrum. Oh, let's buy them whatever's close to them that they want, that we think that that's going to get them to be quiet. Or we're just, hey, we didn't have it as a kid, so this is going to make them happy. And we really have to be intentional about what it is that we are giving them.
Because at the end of the day, it's not going to make them happy. It's like on to the next thing. I just have this vision of like a Christmas and the children just ripping the paper, getting to their presents, open this one, throw it to the side, open this one, throw it to the side, open it. And so you just have this mountain of presents that you're opening. So you just have that the best moments of satisfaction is just opening it. And then I can't tell you how many years until I finally learned that I need to dole these out over time. When Josephine would do that for birthdays. And then months later, we would find unopened boxes still in gift bags. I'm horrified to say this.
Right.
But just there that she was not planning to ever play with. It's just so wasteful.
That's like my girls' closets. There's tags. The girl that comes in and helps me organize or clean her, she does a bunch of stuff. But she's always like, do you have any tags around their clothes? She's like, can I just take them? And I'm like, it's almost embarrassing that it's just unnecessary because they thought they wanted it in the moment. And me too, because my closet is full of those things too. And actually, I told my girls yesterday, we are clearing, I said this is one thing you're going to do before we're going away in 2 weeks. Before we go, you are emptying your closets, because it's wasteful. And you think in the moment they're out shopping and, oh, they really want this. Yeah, this is fun. Let me get this for them because I can. But it doesn't mean anything. And it actually means less when they do get something.
It does, because, it's like a vacation's not a vacation if it's a permanent thing, It's just you want to have something special, and when everything is special all the time, it's no longer special. So, and it doesn't bring them full-time satisfaction, because I feel like you look at, there's an epidemic of depression, and it's starting younger and younger. Kids are just, I really feel like it's a combination of getting your kids on social media too early and just giving them the phone. Plus, this constant of like, okay, how about this? Is this going to make you happy? And it's just going back to what you said. Some of the children, and I can relate to this. We played out in the yard, or, in like our neighborhood with other neighborhood kids. And we had a lot of different games that we played. Just hopscotch. We played this other type of a game. You just kind of stretch your rubber band between two people, and then you just like kind of do the different jumping things. A lot of it was really active and just social, outdoors, and you were engaging with other human beings. And there's just such a beautiful lost art in that.
And don't you think if you could think about this and think about how you grew up in your childhood, and then you look at your kids and the pressures that they have in the childhood, don't you wish that you could teach them and go back to how we grew up, where I loved it. I don't have a complaint about it, but there is so much pressure and unkindness and bullying and all of that goes along with this desire to keep up with everyone else. I wish that I could give that time when I had nothing and I knew nothing different, and I loved it. I loved my childhood, and I have such good memories of it. And I feel like our kids, like you said, it's just, well, I didn't get this, or I didn't get this, and that's kind of their thought process. So I think and again, we're all going to be, successful and fail at this at the same time. But if you can teach this from very early on,
yes,
and be strict about it and be just very consistent about it, then I think that's when your kids will get a better foundation than the other kids that are getting everything thrown at them.
And ultimately, they'll be happier. They'll be happier as children. They'll be more fulfilled as adults. And something I really, so in COVID, I got really close to, we buy our milk from this Mennonite community. And so I'm so in love with their lifestyle and the simplicity of, they just, it's like going back in time. There's something so beautiful and simple about it. And so a family may indeed be wealthy and have a ton of things, but they live a very minimalist lifestyle. So from outside looking in, you're like, oh my gosh, but it's beautiful. And it's teaching these kids to not put value and happiness onto material things. And they're just so much more into helping the family, having, it's not even chores. It's just, this is the responsibility. I hate the word chores, like, I'll pay you to do this. Like, no, you live here, okay? You live here, and there are responsibilities of you for anybody living in this household.
Yes.
You have to contribute to life. So you're not just going to sit there and play while the rest of us are over here maintaining the household. And I think giving your child a job, I think about, people that I've known in my life as adults who have had depression. When you give them a job and a task and they have responsibility, it contributes to their mental well-being. So
yeah, it's a sense of purpose, a sense of accomplishment.
Yes, to do something for somebody else, or to just know that you're responsible for something. So if you have a child who's, feeling blue, a lot of it has to do with also hormones as a teenager. You're just, I remember being a teenager and how everything is crazy and confusing and different things, but having a sense of purpose in responsibility is key. It's not to fill that void or that space with more things. And foundationally, for us, it's obviously also resting on the Word of God and building, explaining what is right and what is wrong, because right now in this world, too many things are left up to interpretation for what is right and what is wrong. And people are saying, this is my truth and respect my truth. And there is no such thing as my truth. There is the North and there's the South. Like, I can't be like, I'm going to go east, but I'm going to call it south, and you guys have to respect that. No, I'm delusional if I'm saying that. So, I mean, that's the reality of it. And so where do you find a source of truth that is unbiased? So for us, that's been in the Bible, and I think that instilling that and passing that on to your children early on, they'll have to go through their own faith journey at the end of the day. But again, just like boundaries, just like rules, just like anything, you are the source of that until they're 18 at least. Right. And then still then, like I'm, in my 40s, and my mom still makes sure that I get my daily dose of the Bible if she doesn't feel like I did.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always surprised at how much I still at 51 need my mom.
Yes.
It's crazy, but I still go to her for advice.
They're wise.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the last thing we'll talk about with boundaries and one of the reasons that you want to do it is emotional regulation for your kids. It's super important. And we've mentioned this a little bit, but you can watch kids that throw temper tantrums, or they're the ones that are so persistent and just beg and beg and beg. And I just sit back. If you just sit back and watch this happening somewhere else to somebody else, and you're going to be like, this is so exhausting for them. I mean, yes, but for them, they're wearing themselves out and they're just emotionally drained, and they're going to become now angry. And it's just something that is really important to help them to regulate their emotions. And you can create it, and you can help make it worse, or you can end it. And let's just say this. There are different personalities, and we understand this isn't a blanket parenting.
Right.
Not everything fits every kid. There are very strong-willed children, and they're just different. There are kids that have, special needs, or just, something may just be off with them, right? You talk about this a lot with food and eating, and especially the smaller kids, and they don't understand, they can't communicate. But as a whole, I would say a majority of the time we have the ability to help them control their emotions. And it's so important for us to have those boundaries for them, and them being able to move past whatever that situation is, to get past it, and then to have a good day. Mm-hmm. Like, you're throwing off the whole day by allowing this back and forth and this craziness between the two of you.
Yeah, so to sum it up, what would you say as far as, in a general type of a setting, if you have a tantrum, how do you prevent something like that from happening to begin with? Obviously, it's not always going to be perfect, but what would you say are some good steps? I mean, this kind of, just to sum up everything we've been saying.
Yeah, for me and what I did, because I just wouldn't allow them.
Yeah.
The minute that happened the first time was the last time that it happened with my kids, because I would very bluntly be like, hey, this is not happening. I did not give in to them. I was very consistent. I would walk away. I mean, there were times, I'll just be completely honest about this. There were times when we would be in a restaurant. Now, my girls were fantastic, because I would look at them and they would be like, oh no. And there was very little I had to do with them. My son, he is strong-willed, but let me tell you, Mama is strong-willed too. And I was never going to let him win. But there were times we'd be at a restaurant and he would start like acting up, and I would just firmly take the inside of his leg and just tighten it and be like, don't you mess with me right here. Like, this is not going to happen. And it wasn't hurtful or anything like that. I never took it to that, but it was very like, this is not going to happen. And it just had to happen. I don't even remember doing it more than maybe twice, just because he learned very quickly. But I think from the time they're little, you have to remove yourself from that situation, so you're not feeding in. I think what they're trying to do in those moments is, how far can we push to get what we want? And sometimes because like you say, they can't, because usually this happens when they're little. Yeah. Now, when I see it in 8 and 9-year-olds, I'm like, oh my gosh, like get a hold of your kids. But again, I understand there are situations where kids just have other needs, and you know you have to go outside of what I'm going to say. But I think for the majority of the kids, you just don't allow it to happen. And the minute that it does, you are like, this is not going to happen. This is ridiculous. I'm going to walk myself out of this situation, and don't give them any attention to allow them to do that.
You see the signs early on, and you're kind of nipping it in the bud before it escalates into a full-blown tantrum.
Yeah, because honestly, I don't think I ever had a kid that did a full-out tantrum. Yeah. Because the smallest sign of it, it just would not. I mean, I remember my dad saying this, like, because he would spank us. And he said my brother did it one time. He goes, oh, that was the last time he did it. Because he just spanked him. He's like, it never happened again. And it's, you don't have to. I know parents are very against that today. But there is a forcefulness that you can have in your actions and your follow through that will get them to that same spot.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with spanking, it's not a license to abuse your child. Obviously, it's not. You're not going to go and wind up and just punch them in the face or something like that. I mean, that's abuse, and that should be punishable by law. Yeah. But there is a way to, and a reason, I feel like, and we may or may not, agree on this, but I feel like I've seen it in some families done very well, where it wasn't emotional, when that was a consequence for some of the most grave offenses that had to do with something that would be a safety concern, or something that had to do with violence towards another member of the family. If a child is hitting another child, that's something that is inappropriate, and that requires, in certain cases, a more stern approach than just words, or putting them in timeout, or whatever your consequence may be. I don't know if timeout's always effective either. Obviously, it's not a one size fits all.
I never did that. I never felt like timeout worked. I don't think I ever did that with my kids. But it depends. Your kids are all very different. With your strong-willed children, you have to be more forceful. Like, there are things you just have to do that are different than somebody that's more of a sensitive child. So there are differences in how you parent each one of the kids. But I think the most important thing, like you said, is just when you catch it, and you catch it early, you just don't allow it.
Yeah, and I witnessed something a few months ago. We were just out, we just saw this little child. I mean, he couldn't have been a day over like 3 or 4. And he just was clearly having a bad day. And I don't think it was his mom who was with him, if she was a babysitter or, another member of the family, but she was having an equally tough time with him. So he was screaming and yelling. I mean, like at one point sitting on the ground outside, and she just was like talking to him like he was an adult. Like, why are you doing this? I mean, trying to really reason with a child in that moment is completely unrealistic. So at that point, I mean, you just pick your child up and you remove them. If you're in the street, you just pick them up and remove them. They're kicking, they're screaming. You remove them in silence. You cannot engage with them, because anything you say to them is not getting through. This is not going to be a moment of learning. You have to wait for them to just get to the point where their emotions are regulated and they have stopped kind of thrashing. And so when you're in the midst of the tantrum, I guess the number one thing is silence and just removing the child out of the situation. And there are different things that you could obviously do, but I think that a lot of times it's hunger related. So my first line of defense is to offer them some water, to offer them a snack. And as we were saying earlier, it works for husbands too. So if they're,
yeah. Let me say something real quick, because have you seen the new trend where people yell the name Jessica? Like,
no.
When you haven't? So these are little, like I would say 1, maybe 2, and they're throwing a fit.
Oh my gosh,
either that or they throw the cheese on their forehead. And I was like, I kind of
And they're like, wait a minute, what just happened?
But I think it's really funny, the Jessica, where they're like, they just yell Jessica and the kid's like, who are they talking to? And it totally stops. It disrupts what they're doing, because again, I think that what they're doing is they're testing you. So if you totally throw them off, I mean, I think that's what the cheese does, then they completely go back to normal.
My mom does that for Theo when she's feeding him. So
Wait, which one?
With Theo.
No, cheese?
She'll just be like, oh, is that Adele outside? It's like one of my daughter's friends. Adele, and he's like, and she's like, spoon in the mouth, and he's like.
That's very creative.
So, I mean, distraction is definitely it. Yeah. But your child in that moment of the tantrum, once they're at that level, they have no way. You can't reason with them at all. And so you want to, wait for them to calm down. But if they're cranky, maybe they're tired, maybe they're hungry. So those are the basic things that you might want to address right off the bat. And so
it would be very funny to be like, hey, you want some water right now? I would like to see how they react to that.
After they come down.
Oh, after they come down.
Okay. But, they're looking to fill their power struggle bucket.
Yeah.
That's the best way somebody put it to me.
They're
or
learning.
Attention bucket, okay? And so if you just are equally as hyped up in the moment when they're freaking out, that's going to also teach them that, okay, right. I'm going to get some attention out of that. And so
I think the most important, well, there's a lot of important things, but a very important thing is you regulate your own emotions.
That's the most difficult part.
It is
in that moment, as a mother, you're just like embarrassed. You're in a social setting. And I follow this account. I was telling you about it earlier. And it talks about just that there are physical things that you could do to help a child kind of neurologically, because all of those things are connected. And for them, it's really hard to sometimes regulate their emotions. So there are different sensory things that you could do. With a grown-up child, you can, do breathing exercises. You can do kind of different calming techniques that, I use like with Josephine for things. But with a child, with a baby, where they can't necessarily understand it, there are different things. I mean, the sense of touch is a big one. Sometimes your child just needs a hug. And so that may not be it, but that may also fix it. So snack didn't fix it, and I'm not talking about full-blown temper tantrum for a snack. You don't want them to choke on the snack. But during a temper tantrum, removing them silence and, sometimes holding them, sometimes they don't want to be held. So sometimes you just want to set them, aside and just kind of back off and just see, what that does. So there are different techniques. And just for emotional regulation before it gets to that, there are a lot of sensory things that you could do with your children too, like letting them play in sand and letting them play in water, things that physically, to them, or a weighted blanket, things that help with emotional regulation, early on and leading up to probably 12 years of age. And, it's important to really kind of address that emotional regulation through these different tools. And we'll share some of the resources for you on our Instagram as well. But, there's so much. It's just uncharted territory in terms of just the tools that you could use towards moments like that.
Yeah, I know it's a big struggle. It's very hard. We're not perfect. None of us are going to be perfect. But I think we have to make some effort for our kids' sake to be able to do it. So as many resources that you can get or, read about, or I know I read a book very early on and he just redid the book. What is it called?
The Strong-Willed Child.
The Strong-Willed Child. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. James Dobson. It's fantastic. And I read some of the stories recently. And some of the solutions he had is really good. So we'll do a lot of the resources because it's hard. It is so hard being a parent in this day and age. There's so many pressures from outside people. And I think some of the reasons that we don't do the discipline and put on boundaries is because we're exhausted and we want to be liked and we want our kids to, we want them to have different things. But I think the most important thing, we have to step back and think about their entire life and not just
long-term
this moment.
consequences. Yeah.
Yep. And for them to be as functional as possible in this world. And if we take their ability out to be able to make these decisions and to have obstacles in their way that they've got to figure out how to go around, if we remove that from their life, they're not going to be productive. They're not going to understand how the real world works and how do I navigate through this successfully.
That's such a great point. I mean, and it starts at childhood. You don't want to be stopping your child from doing everything. Like if they are climbing on a table and you're like, no, that's your initial kind of reaction. But, can they do it safely? Can you allow them to take measured risk? And so that grows and that expands as they grow older. But, you have to allow them to take risks, but also you have to be very vocal about what is right, what is wrong, and you can't soften that. You can't be like, well, it's okay, just like me, and it's not doing anybody any favors. Ultimately, you're not going to be able to force them to do something that is right, and they will have to make their own decisions. But even at that point, I mean, my mom's really good at that. If she ever disagrees with something that I'm doing, she makes it known. She'll be like, okay, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. And I mean, she's a little bit more like, you should stop that. And she won't stop until I do. But really, you can't be so focused on being liked that you let them go off a cliff.
Right. And I, now as an adult, appreciate my upbringing. Like, I appreciate that my parents, there were very clear boundaries for me because I do feel like it helped me later on in life. And I look at the people that didn't have that and they're wandering or they're get into all these, they still have issues at my age because they didn't have clear outline. Yeah. Yep. And they were never forced to be told what to do. And so it was just whatever they wanted. And kids really, truly want boundaries. You may not think that, they may not say that in the moment that they're mad at you for saying no, but I promise you, your kids want boundaries. So, yeah, is there anything else that you
have? Boundaries, one more thing to add, that boundaries are not, they're not controlling. You're not trying to, I mean, some people definitely try to control others, including, their spouses and their children. So I guess, as a parent, it's important to assess the situation too. Are you just doing it to fill your own power bucket? Maybe you just want to just tell somebody no for the sake of saying no. And in some cases, that's okay too. But, if that's a consistent thing, that's really also not necessarily setting boundaries that are done out of love and for the benefit of your child's future. So think about that also, I feel like, as a mom. There's a lot to think about for moms.
Yeah, this is a tough topic, but really important, I think, too. Yeah. So let's go through the challenge. And I just thought of this, so I know we didn't really talk about this, but I do think we need to reflect on what type of parent we are. We can always improve. There's always places. There's so many places that I can improve as a parent. And Same. It's tough because every age you have to adjust what you're doing and how you are with your kids. And the older they get, the more you have to kind of open up and let go and hope that what you did the previous 18 years was great for them, that was helpful to them. And so I think we have to kind of self-reflect on what kind of parent we want to be, how do we want our kids to turn out, and then ultimately, what does that look like? What are the steps we have to do? And I'm going to say this as a challenge because we did this year and I loved it. For Christmas, my mom actually, on Amazon, she got these little cards, and my memory's so bad, but it was basically giving or doing something for somebody. Mm-hmm. And we gave the kids either 5 or 10 of them. So all of my nieces and my nephews, and there's like 20 of us that we decided to do this for Christmas. And it was leading up. It was we gave it to them on Thanksgiving and said, in Christmas, we want everyone to go back, go out and do something for somebody. It didn't have to be monetary. It could just be words. It can be encouragement. It could be a card, whatever that looked like. And the stories that those kids came back with was really cool. Now, I was with my kids, one of them just wasn't doing it. And they were like, we got to do it. And I was like, listen, I don't want you to do this unless it's meaningful. Like, don't do it because you're checking off a list of what your grandma and I think you should be doing. But do it because this is coming from the heart. And some of the kids, I was so proud of them because they really made an impact in different people. And I think my son and his girlfriend made cookies and dropped it off at the fire station and just said, hey, thanks for what you guys do. And then some of the kids did, like, I know there's a greeter at my church that is so just happy. And I just got him a little gift card and wrote him a note and just said, thank you for always being so positive. We don't know what you're going through, but you're making our day more positive. So the stories out of that, I thought that was really cool. So
I love that so much.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
It just, again, you mentioned it earlier, you just feel better when you're giving, right? When you take the focus off yourself, if you have your kids take the focus off themselves and do good for somebody else, that you see their reaction of, oh my gosh, thank you for doing this. And it can be as simple as a note. It doesn't even have to be monetary.
Fills their cup.
It really does.
Kind word. You see somebody, you just say something positive and you see their whole demeanor change. It fills your cup.
Yep. So that's the challenge that I have. And then weekly wins, we talk about this. What is your weekly win? What is it that you can better yourself? Take a couple minutes for yourself. And there's so many different things we've talked about that just build your confidence and make you feel better, make you a better parent, a better spouse, employee, friend, everything. So we're going to leave off with a Bible verse. So it's Proverbs 22:6. It says, train up a child in a way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. For me, this was really important because I've seen journeys of kids that had really great parents and they still go off, and that can happen. But I truly believe, like this verse says, that if you train them, and for me, for you, it's about God. For us, it's about training them in right and wrong. It's not just about parenting them, although this is a big part of it. But for us, it's about the faith and understanding what God requires of us, not just what mom and dad require of you, but what God requires of you. I really believe they're going to have their journey and we're going to do the best that we can. And we don't know what that journey is going to be like. But I believe if you have that foundation, especially if it's founded in God, they're going to always have that in the back of their mind. And even if they divert from it and they go away that you would wish that they didn't, I'm sure my mom would have said that about me at different time periods. But I think that they will ultimately come back and they will remember that foundation. So that's the Bible verse.
Thanks everybody for joining us. This was a really awesome session. I feel like there's just so much more to say, but so much that needs to be said. And really, really excited for our next session. If you guys like this, if you found this to be valuable or you know somebody who could benefit from this, give us a follow, share this, and definitely follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, for some additional insights into the different topics we talk about. See you next time.
Thank you.